The Ruger Max 9 is a significant gun from Ruger because it's the first pistol that they've made in a long time that really tries to jump in and get in front of the current market trend, as opposed to sort of shooting the layup and just putting something out there that is pretty safe and will probably sell to its fans. The Max 9 is a micro compact 9 that can boast 10 or 12 rounds of 9mm, is optics ready, and has a co-witness sight for its tritium fiber optic front sight. I'm David from Gun Deals. So the Ruger Max 9 is Ruger's entry into the micro compact 9mm segment that is increasingly getting more and more competitive, and that's nothing but a good thing for us, the consumers. The Max 9 has an MSRP of $499. It comes in a cardboard box, and depending on which model you get, it's either going to have 10 or a 10 and 12 round magazine. There is an option for a manual safety, which is the model I have here, but there's a Pro Series which comes without a manual safety, and honestly I'd probably go that direction since the manual safety is not ambidextrous. What is most significant to me about the gun is the way that they milled the sight pocket into the slide. They gave the gun a good blacked out rear with a fiber optic front, so the sights are supposed to co-witness through the dot. And that's really awesome if you're going to carry a gun with a dot on it. It's a really good idea to have backup iron sights, and Ruger rose to the challenge, providing what looks like a great set of iron sights. The slide finish is going to be a black oxide, which other guns in the segment are going to have like DLC finished slides, which are going to have sort of a more high-end sort of look to them. All of the slide cuts for the cocking serrations, both fore and aft, are highly functional and work exactly as you need them to. The frame is where I start to kind of knock the Max, unfortunately. Its traction is honestly not the best. For guns with frames this small, you only get basically your strong hand to really manage the recoil, and it just doesn't feel like it locks into your grip in a way that the P365 or the Hellcat sort of do. The texture on the gun they describe as a medium, and I personally would describe it as like a light finish, and the actual like polymer itself that they use in the frame just kind of is a little bit slippery. But if your hands are dry, the gun is not going to go anywhere. So if you live in a drier climate with low humidity, I think that this is great. But if you live in a more humid climate, you may want to address the texture on the gun with like some Talon grips or stippling or something else to provide a little bit more traction. The trigger guard is kind of a weird shape. They decided to kind of chamfer it up towards the frame once it clears your knuckle. So it creates a very small trigger guard, and I imagine if you're in a colder climate and we're potentially shooting with gloves on, people with sausage fingers would have a hard time getting their finger into the gun. As far as the frame setting up the length of pull for the trigger, it's actually done pretty well. The gun has almost like a revolver style shaped sort of recurve trigger with a trigger blade safety, and it's a little bit of a better trigger than like a Security 9, but that said, there is a lot of creep on the trigger. So what creep is, if you're not familiar, is the amount of pull that you have to pull through once you get onto the wall. So you have the take up, which basically deactivates the trigger blade safety and gets the actual trigger pull started, and then you can see that's when the wall begins, but you keep moving. There's about 3 false walls before I get to the actual wall, and then the trigger breaks and releases. The actual reset is kind of long, and the swing forward pressure from the trigger is kind of weak. But since the trigger is so creepy, I mean, there's just a lot of wiggle once you get on that wall. It makes the gun a little bit more challenging to shoot accurately, and you'll notice that if you're trying to shoot rapidly, that it's easier to pull shots off target because the gun only weighs about 18 ounces. The trigger is weighted at about 5 pounds, was the 5-pull average on my scale. So the trigger pull weight itself is actually quite good for a gun in this segment, but all the creep that they put on this trigger and all the movement that you have to go through to break the shot just makes it a gun that's a little bit more difficult to get practical accuracy from. Other guns in the segment have creepy triggers as well. It's very common on striker fired guns, but the frames are a little bit more squared away where there's not as much muzzle wiggle, kind of up, down, and all around, so they're easier to shoot more accurately. That said, this gun is very, very accurate. You can see on the screen the group from when I zeroed my optic when I was shooting the gun, and I was able at 10 yards to make almost all the bullet holes touch. In validating my zero, I did exactly that with 5-shot groups. At 10 yards, I stretched it back to 50 yards and was able to connect with steel. The gun is very mechanically accurate due to the hammer forged barrel that they've given the gun. The optic cut is honestly really well done, and I applaud Ruger for doing it. It's a Shield RMSC cut, so your like Holosun 407K, 507K, Swamp Fox, Sentinels, all of those style of optics will fit in this without any modification. You're gonna have to figure out the screw thing sort of on your own, since everybody's screw length is a little bit different. You may have to buy some new screws to make it work in this slide. But assuming that your screws work, the recoil bosses are present, so it's going to do a good job of keeping the optic in operation. There's no rail on the frame, so if you wanted like a light or a laser, you're gonna have to figure out something based off the trigger guard. I'm sure somebody will probably make something for the gun eventually. Now, the magazines for the Max are actually very affordable. You can buy value packs for about $50 or $25 a piece. For reference, you can buy one 6-hour P365 magazine for about $50. The magazines themselves are kind of this like polished stainless look. The followers don't move around at all in the magazine when you're loading them. They seem like a very, very high quality magazine. In the box for my gun, they provided a 10 round and a 12 round magazine. It came with a flush base plate on the 10 rounder, but I put the pinky extension they provided on there, which makes it roughly the same height as the 12 round magazine. And with all of the Ruger products, you're getting the Ruger warranty where they'll take care of you basically forever, and they'll do it really, really fast. If you ever have to call in a warranty claim for Ruger, they're going to turn your product around inside 2 weeks, and that's just really something exceptional. They really do care about their customers, and they put out great products. So that's the Ruger Max 9. So let me know in the comments below if the Max 9 is something that you would consider carrying, or if you would prefer something else in the niche. I appreciate you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care, guys.